everyone. I hope that you are doing fine for this week. And here I am again for the weekly updates and reflection for this week, January 17, 2022. There are a lot of updates that we need to discuss for this week. And here we are. Let us start with the different celebrations coming from the DepEd calendar. So from January 17 to 23, 2022, it is the National Cancer Consciousness Week. And at the same time for this week, this is the 26th National Autism Consciousness Week. So let us have some celebrations in our respective stations or schools regarding this different celebrations. Actually, there are a lot of celebrations in the Department of Education. I would like to impart to you today about this Memorandum Circular Number 2, Series of 2022 from the Civil Service Commission. This is the amendments to the Revised Interim Guidelines on the use of leave credits for absences due to quarantine and or treatment of COVID-19. This is pursuant to CSE Resolution No. 21-01122 promulgated on 31 December 2021. The Commission, in consideration of the predicament of government officials and employees aside from the PHWs or who are repeatedly exposed to COVID-19 while in performance of official duties and due to community transmissions, adopts the following amendments to the Revised Interim Guidelines of the use of leave credits for absences due to quarantine and or treatment of COVID-19 provided under CSE Resolution. So we will be using this one kasi yung interim guidelines ay there's amendment on this. So let us now try to examine kung when you will be exposed to COVID-19, what are the rights and privileges of a government employee. So these guidelines shall apply to all public sector officials and employees regardless of status of appointment, whether you are temporary, permanent, provisional, substitute, coterminous, casual, contractual, or fixed term, including elective officials. So this is for public sector only. So yung private sector, you are not included from these guidelines. So you may adopt your own guidelines on your respective firms and institutions. So for the guidelines, it is the responsibility of each government official or employee or any individual serving in the public sector to ensure adherence to the Interagency Task Force in the management of emerging infectious disease or IETF, EID, and or Department of Health or DOH guidelines, observance of the minimum public health standards at all times, and utilization and necessary measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19 infection in the public sector workplace. Ito naman talaga aim, no? To prevent the spread of COVID-19. Kaya lang, we are bound to follow these guidelines. We must follow these guidelines in order for us to have a smooth working relationship at para maiwasan din yung abuse sa paggamit ng ating mga leave credits. At sa ano bang pamamaraan na hindi ka mamamainusan ng iyong leave credits. So all officials and employees in the public sector who come from official or personal travel from countries with or without localized COVID-19 transmission shall undergo the required quarantine subject to the prevailing IETF, EID, and or DOH guidelines. So lahat ng employees na may official or personal travels sa mga countries with or without COVID transmission, we are really subject for quarantine. So that is one of the conditions. All officials in the public sector who came from official or personal travel who were categorized as suspect, probable, and confirmed cases of COVID-19 shall be isolated in the proper authority depending on the severity of their symptoms, subject to IETF, EID, and DOH guidelines. So, lahat talaga shall undergo that quarantine isolation, but it depends on the severity of the symptoms. All officials and employees in the public sectors who are identified as close contact of any of the following shall undergo required quarantine in their home or agency support accommodation or designated quarantine facility, subject to the prevailing ITF, IED, and DOH guidelines. So kung ikaw ay na-expose or close contact sa probable cause, confirmed COVID-19 case, and inbound international travelers. So take note of that. So absence from work due to the following, to the required period of quarantine, isolation, or treatment as of for the COVID-19 as applicable shall be treated as follows. So ito na yung mga amendments sa guidelines nila. So for the first column, we have the categories: government officials and employees coming from official or personal travel countries with or without localized COVID-19 transmission who underwent the required quarantine period, isolation, or treatment for COVID-19. So, yung mga officials na coming from official or personal travel from abroad, no? Abroad siya. So, for those official travel, for categories 1 and 2, absence from work during the required quarantine period, isolation, and treatment for every instance shall be considered as excused absence. So, required quarantine, leave, isolation, and COVID-19 treatment leave, subject to the provision of 3.7 here and there. So, kung ang lakad mo ay official, so yung required quarantine, isolation, and treatment, lahat yun excused absence. Kasi kung may pinuntahan ka outside the country at ito ay official na lakad, so you are supposed to be having an excused absence. You are going to submit application for leave of absence, kaya lang wala na siyang minus sa iyong leave credits. And you need to have the certificate issued by government private position that you submitted for monitoring investigation as applicable for close contacts. For category number 2, yun pa rin, no? Yung mga employees coming from official or personal. Then, sa condition number 2, yung mga personal travel. No, halimbawa pumunta ka sa ibang bansa. But that is not an official business travel. That is a personal travel. So, for the absence, for every required quarantine period shall be still considered as excused absence. So, yung quarantine period mo ay considered excused. However, the period of isolation and treatment shall be considered sick leave chargeable against their leave credits, if any. So, halimbawa, mayroon kang symptoms, i-isolate ka or magkakaroon ka ng treatment, so it is not anymore considered subject or excused absence. So, isa-charge na yan sa iyong leave credits. Kasi pag pumunta ka sa ibang bansa, personal kasi yung lakad mo. In case work suspension, halimbawa alert level 4 sa iyong lugar, or higher pa na alert level at wala namang hindi naman pinapapunta sa work, so during the period of isolation or treatment, it shall be considered excused absence and shall not be chargeable against their earned leave credits. So you just need to have that completion of certificate of quarantine, then medical certificate that you are fitted, and then copy of RT-PCR test results. The third condition is government officials who are infected or identified as close contacts of suspect, probable, or confirmed cases of COVID-19 while in the performance of their official functions, whether on-site or work from home arrangement, and underwent the required quarantine period, isolation, and or treatment ng COVID-19. So, pag ikaw ay na-infect ng COVID-19 during the course of performing your duties and responsibilities, whether you are on-site or work from home, no? Doon ka nakakontact ng COVID-19. So the absence from work for every instance of quarantine period, isolation, and treatment shall be considered as excused absence. So pag na-quarantine ka, na-isolate, at nagkakaroon pa ng further treatment at di ka makapapasok, so you are considered as excused from your absence. Kasi nasa work ka, no? That is work days na nangyari ang pag ano sa iyo, pag ano ng iyong pag-contact ng COVID-19. But for the number 4 category, if you are infected due to personal activities and underwent the required quarantine period, the absence for work for the instance of quarantine period shall be considered excused absence. So yung quarantine, excuse ka. However, if there are complications na i-require ka na mag-isolate at magkaroon ng further treatment of COVID-19, that will be charged to your service credits. So, ganun pa rin in case work suspension is declared during the required period of quarantine, that can be considered also as excused absence. Kasi you don't have, even if you will not be isolated or you will not you will not undergo treatment, hindi ka pa rin makakapasok kasi mayroong work suspension declared in the place. So, kailangan lang din ng iyang copy ng contract tracing form, no? Continuation ito sa procedure kanina. And then copy of vaccination for fully vaccinated. Then government officials, this is the 5th category. Government officials and employees on personal leave from countries without approved travel authority before or after the declaration of the state of public health emergency due to COVID-19, who underwent the required period of quarantine, isolation, or on treatment for COVID-19. So ano yan? The absence shall be considered from the quarantine, isolation, and treatment shall be considered as not excused and shall be deducted from their earned leave credits. However, if work suspension is declared, it shall be considered as excused absence and shall not be chargeable against their leave credits. So ito yung delikado pag nagpunta ka sa ibang lugar, nag-travel ka ng abroad without approved travel authority. Kasi kailangan talaga pa rin ang approved travel authority even if your business there is personal. Even if your travel is personal, as employees of the government, we should seek travel authority from our Department of Education. And then, in the event of circumstance aforementioned, wherein the employee has exhausted his or her leave credits, the omnibus rules on leave shall apply, allowing the use of vacation leave credits in lieu of the sick leave credits. So, pag naubos na yung sick leave, pwedeng kumuha sa i-apply yung omnibus rules on leave. So, kunin yung vacation leave. In the event na wala ka talaga natira sa leave credits mo, so the employee may apply for sick leave of absence without pay. So, magkakaroon ka na without payment. No? Government officials who identified as close contacts of suspect, probable and confirmed case of COVID-19, or those asymptomatic and underwent the required quarantine while waiting for the result of the swab test administered upon or completing the required quarantine as prescribed by ATF may be required to adopt a work from home arrangement depending on the nature of work of the employee pursuant to CSE Memorandum Circular No. 18 Series of 2020. So yung mga close contacts, kung naghihintay pa or mga asymptomatics, naghihintay pa ng result of the swab test, so pwede silang hindi absenan, mag-work from home lang sila, no? So, at sa iyong 3.8, yung mga government officials na dapat considered excused absence pero na-deductionan ang kanilang leave credits, according to this circular, kailangan isauli, i-restore ang kanilang said leave credits. Take note, it should be restored by the respective human resource personnel office units. So, the following documents may be required in support of absences due to the required quarantine period. So kung official business ka, kailangan ng travel authority ka, no? Office order, certificate of appearance, laboratory test results, and other travel documents. Kung personal travel naman, hindi nakasali yung office orders at certificate of appearance kasi hindi ka man magpa-refund. So kailangan pa rin kahit personal travel ng travel authorities. Take note of that, ha? As government employee, when you will be on personal travel, especially on international, so kailangan pa rin ng travel authority. So friends, for my reflection for this week, it is found on Mark chapter 10 verse 27. And Jesus looking upon them said, with men it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So mga kaibigan, paaring sa mga sitwasyon natin ngayon, sasabihin natin, there are a lot of impossibilities. Impossible. Maybe you are down, you have a lot of challenges, you have a lot of problems faced, but this is a promise on Mark chapter 10 verse 27. Lahat ay posible sa Panginoon. Kung sa mga tao it is impossible, but with God it is possible. With Him all things are possible. So mga kaibigan, kapit lang po tayo, because with God all things are possible. Kaya kung ano man ang dinadala nating problema, mga challenges, mga threats, mga depression, ano pa yung mga difficulties that you are facing today, please remember, offer them to God. For with God, nothing shall be impossible. Kapit lang po tayo, patuloy tayong manalig, at ibuhos natin ang lahat ng ating atensyon sa Panginoon. For if God, nothing is impossible, and if we put God at the center of our lives, then all things are possible with Him. Maraming salamat at magandang araw sa inyo.